left, right.
In this episode of SipTalk, we are talking about trends from the past that keep coming back. Think bell-bottom jeans, mid-century modern, different types of music. Either way, I hope you like this one. Wishing you the best next hour of your life. I'll see you on the other side. This is SipTalk. Grab a drink and enjoy.
Crisis film.
Cheers.
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 It's and think about it like this. When was the last time that you were at an event? Like, let's just say it was like a dinner or like some kind of social event where, like, let's say there's a minimum of like 5 people there. What are the chances that at least one person is on their phone at any given moment?
Yeah, I would say 4 out of 5 at any given moment. Were you going somewhere with this?
No, it's just like that's so strange to me because like I don't like being on my phone at all. Like if I have to take out my phone when I'm in the middle of a conversation with somebody, or even if I'm out to dinner or like drinks with people, like if I have to take out my phone, I feel like I'm being rude, even if it's just to respond to like a text message or something. Let alone like browsing content. The only excuse would be like, "Hey, you said something. Let me look that up to see like how true that is."
It drives me fucking insane when you're hanging out with people and what they want to do is like have conversation with you and be on their phone simultaneously. What I
just
do,
won't do it. I'll say,
well, here's what I do: is
I
I just stop talking. I
Yeah.
stop speaking. I wait for them to make eye contact, and I just say, "When you're ready, when you're ready," and that's it. But I mean, I definitely agree with you. I think it's very rude to be on your phone, or to have your phone in your hand, or to have your phone unlocked, and like the screen is up, like you're waiting, like you got something better you have going on. But that's our generation. Our generation is kind of borderline where we're not cool with the multitasking. Either way, welcome to Sip Talk. This is episode 251. Today we are talking about trends that keep resurging. Things like bell bottoms and vinyl records. We got a whole big long list for you, but we're going to get a little political first. We might spit out a little bit of well, right now we're talking about the shit that bothers us quite a bit. And that is when you're having a conversation with somebody and you are on your phone or they are on their phone and they're not giving you their attention. And if you have not noticed and you're watching us live, we have a whole new aspect ratio. You're watching us vertically. You're seeing me on my screen, at least. I'm on the top, James on the bottom. Today, I am joined by James, the Boswell, philosopher, philanthropist, philatelist, philosopher, a man of many PHs. James, what are you drinking down there? I hear you opening that beer.
PBR.
Oh, a PBR. Good to hear. You're back in the money, I see.
Yeah, it wasn't purchased by me.
Oh, a lucky man. So, am I missing anything about the cell phone interaction when you were out with friends?
I mean, no. It's just to me, it's really aggravating, and I don't like like if I go out to like a grocery store or something, I'll have headphones on and I'll be listening to my own music because basically what I'm trying to signal is I don't want to be talked to. But that's not a social setting. Like if I'm in a social setting, then I will only answer my phone or look at my phone if I absolutely have to.
So I spent a week and a half ago. I spent the week away, and I was forced to put my phone on airplane mode pretty much all the day, and that allowed me to feel very much more in the moment, and I really really enjoyed it. So what I've been doing since is I basically set office hours for myself and said my phone's on do not disturb. You text me, you email me, you're not getting an answer between whenever you send a message and 5 p.m. So you just got to hang tight. But I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm not going to try to multitask. I'm not going to answer a text message, then realize I got an email, then get bored, log into Instagram, scroll a little bit, answer some DMs. I'm just fucking not going to do any of it. By the way, those of you who are watching us live, you can watch us live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. If you're watching on TikTok, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to see us, and we're not going to be able to read your comments. You'll just see me. And Instagram this week is a little bit off limits. I'm sorry you can't make it on Instagram, but that's just we're making some upgrades to this podcast. Where do you want to go? You want to leave with politics?
It's been a month and a lot's happened. I don't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole of politics, but
Nobody does.
I watched a good bit of Biden's debate performance from like 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago or whatever
Yeah,
it was.
I was away. I wanted to watch this. I was away,
I
and
watched some of it live,
yeah, I'm
and
sorry,
then
buddy.
I was like, "Yeah, this is painful." And then I like
It was
afterwards.
it was poorly moderated, and just the contestants were not really there to have a real debate.
No, but it's Biden was borderline unlistenable, and Trump was lying at a record clip.
So here's what I told you: is that I see Trump winning this election. The only way, only because his base is really strong. The Republicans
He's got a high floor, but he's got a low ceiling.
the Republicans want nothing to do with any Democrats. All right, the Republicans are pretty clear. They don't like the Democrats. And a lot of them don't like Trump, but they will vote for Trump. Okay, here's the other side: is the left, the liberals, the libtards, the far right, the array of the left. Here's the issue, and I say libtards, kind of tongue in cheek, but it's and some people like identify as a libtard. They're like, no, I'm just fucking crazy liberal. I'll do whatever the liberals say. These are my people. We have each other's back. This is my community. These guys are voting for Biden. The problem is, over the last 9-10 years, is that the left has divided, and the far left has kind of ostracized the middle left and the more centrist left. So Joe Biden, unfortunately, is not the power player that the Democrats need. And when you watch him speaking, you watch him in any public engagement, there's no Joe Biden. It's unfortunately, it's like a kind of Uncle Bernie's type thing. And it's frustrating for a lot of kind of centrist left-wing people. And a lot of these people, from what I see, are saying, well, this guy's not really doing much. And the people that are closer to center are saying, well, times were better actually under Trump, or less inflation. We made more money. We had more money. Now, I guess maybe the kids are out of the cages or something. I don't fucking know. I don't know any kids in cages. Well, but my life is not as good as it was 5-6 years ago.
And so when you said that, you stated that argument, I know it's not your position, but it is certainly a position that people hold. Like, that sent me down a research rabbit hole, because I don't think life was better under Trump. And I think to say that it was is either denying reality for yourself or denying the reality of others, because there might have been people that weren't affected negatively by some of the terrible policies of Trump. But, like, for example, like the caging of the kids at the border, did that affect me directly? No.
Well, but also that wasn't necessarily a Trump policy. That was
always
the case with Obama in office. So this is
no. There's a difference in terms of, like, we've always, like, you can go back however many American presidents and you'll find that, like, our country has not been the best at treating immigrants well. But what the Trump administration did that was very different from previous administrations was family separation, where if a family crossed the border and gave themselves up for asylum, and to try and, like, follow the rules more or less, the Homeland Security or Immigrations and Custom Enforcement would separate the kids from the family. And the reason they did this was to try and discourage people from coming here, because this is a punitive thing to take. Mm-hmm. And there are pictures of kids in cages, like the kind of cages that you would have for, like, a dog in a kennel.
And I mean, they were, just for the record, they were a little larger. They were a little larger, but they were still made out of the same material.
Right.
It was also very degrading.
And so when I mentioned this, I don't live near the border. I was not locked in a cage myself, but I can still find the treatment of people by our government in such a fashion to be outrageous. And for someone to say life is better under Trump is to ignore the realities of the cruelties that the administration undertook while he was president.
But here, what you're envisioning is this kind of overall perspective where people understand A to Z. What I'm saying is that the people that just exist, they drive to fucking Walmart, they drive home, they go to their 9-to-5 job, they look in their bank account now, they look in their bank account 4 years ago, 5 years ago. They look at X factor or Y factor or Z factor, they compare it to 4, 5, 6 years ago. And 4, 5, 6 years ago, all these factors were better.
Well,
I will say the benefit of not having Trump in office is that the United States presidential role is not something that is in conversation in the daily news on a regular fucking basis. I think that's kind of cool, right? Like, we're not all the crazy shit that Trump did every fucking day. It was Trump said this, Trump did this. America's position is slipping because France doesn't have respect for the president of the United States. Germany doesn't have respect for the president of the United States. Russia is trying to get over on the U.S. because they know Trump is a puppet. None of that conversation is happening right now, so that's cool.
Yeah, so
but
at least we
the
don't have
conversation
the
that's
daily
happening,
sideshow.
but the conversation that's happening is Biden is basically doing nothing, and unfortunately, you have this hardcore. And the issue being the president is that you should never be so far right or so far left. You're supposed to be kind of the median. You're supposed to be the people that you ideally you get elected by a majority of the. If you're Democratic, you get elected by the majority of the Democrats and a minority of the Republicans. Not just it's a measure of whether there's more Democrats or more Republicans in the country.
Well, it's really more like in this country, the population of Republicans and Democrats is roughly equal. Democrats
and you're getting elected by one or
higher.
the other. You're getting
The population of Democrats is slightly higher, and what is going to swing an election is going to be like the independents and undecided voters. And so you need to win over the people that don't feel a strong allegiance to either party.
By the way, we will leave the topic of politics shortly. We will bring you into bar trivia. We have an interesting bar trivia question from the last episode 250.
Let me just really quick hit
we have a cool topic that we will talk about, but James and I want to just kind of have a little discourse about this for the next 3 to 5 minute stops. So just hear us out. We will get to the more boring topic where our listener will probably drop off by that point. But I'm just asking you, stick around.
All right. So real quick, I'm just going to hit these and I'm going to try and go through it as fast as I can.
All right.
So was the stock market better under Trump? Well, Biden hasn't finished his term yet, so we can't know exactly how Biden's stock market finishes out. But Trump's stock market had annualized gains of 11.8%. Under Clinton, it was 15.9. Under Obama, it was 12.1. Under W, it was 3.5. Under H.W. Bush back in the early 90s was 9.7.
And
so
how is it so far for Obama? Because my guess is maybe
you mean
not.
Biden?
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't do that research.
I suspect it's less than Trump.
No, it's actually higher because like Biden took over.
For somebody who declares I haven't done the research and then says no, it was actually higher.
I mean, hold on.
All right, move on to the next.
While you're talking, I can pull that figure up.
I'm just saying.
I think it's going to be higher because the stock when Biden took over, like stock market was still facing some uncertainties because of like the ongoing coronavirus stuff.
All right, let's talk about EU relations.
All right.
I think that you have
basically, we lost a lot of respect with our allies because we just didn't treat them fairly or with any respect. And like we started an EU trade war. And one of my favorite quotes of all time was from the EU trade minister, Claude Juncker, saying, "This is basically a stupid process. The fact that we have to do this, but we have to do it. We can also do stupid." Weakening of NATO. So like Trump made it very clear that he wasn't really supportive of the alliance, and like kind of said that like he would withhold support to members until they reach the 2% GDP goal. We pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord. We pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal.
Here's the issue. He had his reasons for pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal. Had his reasons for pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord, but it wasn't that. It wasn't that I can do better and make something better. It was just I don't really like this. We're out. It wasn't, I think we can do better. I'm going to make something better, and we're going to do something better.
Right. And by pulling out of like the Iran nuclear deal, that made Iran less likely to do any kind of deal in the future because like if the Americans aren't going to honor a deal that they signed, how valuable is their next offer going to be? And so it's like, I'm not a fan of Iran, but we need to have some kind of negotiating power with them besides dropping bombs on them. Right, and by pulling out of a deal, we lose that negotiating power.
Yeah, we've lost a lot of traction in the Middle East and the Far East.
And the Paris Climate Accord, not perfect by any means, but like at least it's something to try and mitigate climate change. Like he was terrible. He treated Puerto Rico terribly during the recovery of
it was so over. Listen, it's a little bit of Trump derangement syndrome. He didn't go down and fucking chuck paper towels at people's heads, but people handed him some paper towels. He threw them out to the crowd. And the video clips I had just kind of look stupid.
I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the fact that
the United States did not do a very good job supporting Puerto Rico during that time. And the clips of Trump chucking paper towels at people did not help.
No, and that like him throwing paper towels to people is not the thing that I take issue with. It's the way that we didn't support the like
let's get through
the island.
I'm giving you the
Next one.
platform.
All right, Supreme Court picks. He got 3 picks during his term. We've seen how much damage those Supreme Court picks have been able to do.
You lost the right to choice.
Yeah, like overturning Roe v. Wade, overturning Chevron deference, which is a huge thing in terms of like the administrative state. So like all the different government agencies, whether it's like, you know, agriculture, EPA, etc., being able to make rules effectively. The presidential immunity case is horrendous. And I could go on. Those are just like 3 that I was able to come up with. The way that he handled the election afterwards, like it leading to January 6th.
I remember sitting in my office. Nobody was in the office, just me alone. And I watched the news at that point in time every single day from the morning until the evening. And I remember watching January 6th happen, just sitting back at my desk, like laughing, like this is a fucking circus and this is our government. And the thing is, it was funny to me. I actually thought it was funny. However, you should never look at your government as the circus. And whether you think Trump was leading it, whether you think Trump was supporting it or he was for it, at the end of the day, he didn't make any statement or call things off until like
for 4 hours,
like later, like in the afternoon.
So I mean, dude, I don't think it was funny because like you see pictures of people
it was funny because you couldn't believe. It's funny like when you watch something catastrophic happen and you're like, I can't believe, and then like the other shoe drops and you're like, wait, that's fucking even worse. And
right, because like there are pictures of like people in like military fatigues with like zip ties with like the intention of like capturing and possibly executing like Democratic lawmakers.
Somebody took a shit in like Nancy Pelosi's desk.
I mean, that's kind of funny.
It's just fucking weird.
But like the people walking around with the zip ties to like try and like capture senators or Congress people, that's not funny.
No, I mean it wasn't funny. It was so serious that it and absurd that it was funny, but nothing like overall the overarching like situation was not funny. All right, so
last one. Last one. Like
the
Tax Cut and Job Acts, the tax bill that Trump passed for 2018, like that added between $1 and $2 trillion to the deficit alone. So like the whole fiscal conservatism. Why can't I talk?
What he did was he gave a giant tax break to the ultra wealthy, which the ultra wealthy are his base effectively, and the people that fund his campaigns the most, and it contributed to the national deficit quite a bit.
$1 to $2 trillion.
It's like not even people, like I don't even comprehend. I recognize that my brain can't comprehend trillions, and I recognize that my brain struggles to comprehend billions. So
I could
a trillion
this episode.
A trillion is not 100 billion, by the way. It's 1,000 billion. Right?
Yeah, like, I could fill the entire rest of this episode.
I know, which is why we're taking
which is why we're going to move on. But no, life was not better under Trump.
We're taking a hard pivot. First, we're now 20 minutes into this episode, and I'm going to call this the actual starting point for the episode. And as a point of thank you for sticking this far into the episode, I will introduce to you the answer to episode 250's bar trivia. The question last episode was, at 7 a.m., a train moving 90 kilometers per hour leaves Montreal, heading for Toronto. At 8 a.m., a train traveling 110 kilometers per hour leaves Toronto, heading for Montreal. So effectively, they're going opposite directions. Which train will be closer to Montreal when they meet? James, any idea?
No.
All right. So
I feel like there's not enough information.
7 a.m. a train leaves Montreal. 8 a.m. a train leaves Toronto. They are passing each other at some point in time. We don't know because they're both moving different speeds. When they meet, when one conductor looks out his window and for that split second of time sees the other conductor, who will be further or closer to Montreal? Well, when they meet, they will be equidistant to Montreal. It's a trick question. When the trains meet, who's closer to Montreal? No one. They're in the same place. I know that hurts.
Oh yeah. You know, because it's
does not matter the speed they're moving.
Yeah, no, I get it
the
now.
Time they leave do not matter. They're just red herrings. When they meet each other, they're in the same location. Who's further from Montreal? Neither. They're in the same location. I know that might have hurt. I'm sorry. I got you. I got you. Tonight's trivia question is remarkably easy, and it's a funny one. So stay tuned for episode 251, Bar Trivia. It'll be published on SipTalkPodcast.com. Don't forget to visit SipTalkPodcast.com. Buy us a drink. We'll give you a little shout out. You buy us a drink. Also, all the past bar trivia questions are on SipTalkPodcast.com along with the answers. So if you want to brain tease some of your friends and family, that's a place to go because we got some good brain teasers. Let's start talking about the big resurgences that we've seen in their life. Let's see, 25 trends, styles, and things that have had a resurgence in the last decade, starting with vinyl records. I actually was introducing this topic to some people I work with this afternoon. Oh, what are you talking about? SipTalk? I said, oh, we're talking about trends and things that have had a resurgence in the last decade. You know, like vinyl. And I was met with like the material.
Well, yes.
Whichever play, yeah. You know, vinyl, like not like vinyl clothing, vinyl records, right? Over the last decade, vinyl has had a pretty big resurgence. I actually enjoy listening to vinyl. However, have you have any records? You have a record player?
No.
Did you listen to any records when you were up here last time?
Yes.
The downside, and I mean, it's been a long time. I'm a little old, so I remember this mostly with tapes, cassette tapes. But when so vinyl is like you got half the album on one side, half the album on the other side. When you reach that halfway point and you're out of music, it stops, and you have to flip it, which is not an issue I've run into in like 15 years, maybe longer, maybe like 20 years.
Yeah, that's where the B side
comes from.
B-sides,
yeah. So people are not familiar with B-side, but the B-side is the kind of like unpopular side. It would be the place where the artists, the musicians would put their music that wasn't going to be kind of like top hits. They were hidden on the B-side. However, this is where the artist would kind of take some experiments and kind of push the bill a little bit. And that's where really some really cool music was on the flip side of the record or the B-side of the cassette. You want to hit the next one?
Retro gaming. And I would say part of what's brought retro gaming back is like speed running, where people watch like where people try and beat games as fast as possible. And like watching speed runs is really entertaining, and that's brought a lot of people back into trying out these old games and seeing like, oh, you can beat Super Mario Brothers in 4 minutes and 55 seconds. Like, that's wild. Let me try that. And the list goes on for all these games. And like with emulation being cheap and accessible, like there's not much of a barrier. Like, sure, it's cool to get the old original console or whatever, but if you have a computer and even just a little bit of knowledge, you can download pretty much any of these games and play them on your computer.
MAME.org, right?
MAME would be for like arcade games.
All right.
But if you want like a Game Boy or an N64 or Nintendo or Super Nintendo, Sega, any of those systems, you can download a program that's an emulator, and then you just download the ROM files and load them in. And with a little bit of configuration, you're playing these games.
Well, I plan to build an arcade system in my basement. It's gonna be I got a lot of projects going on, but that's my plan. I'm not a board gamer. I'm not a card player. I'm not a video gamer. I'm really kind of not a man of any interesting hobbies for the last like 20 years. But as a kid, I fucking loved, and you know this. I think we became friends over like legit a video game. Remember this? Wolfenstein 3D. I had the cheat code book or whatever that.
And I had the full version of the game.
And I only had the shareware, which was like one level, and then you had the full version. And somehow we found this out. I had the book, and you wanted to borrow the book. I'd let you borrow the book, and I wanted to borrow the game. You let me borrow the game, and then fledged a great friendship. So games are something I really think are cool. I would love the opportunity in my free time to spend some time playing some retro games. Next up, Polaroid cameras. Now I can tell you,
one.
I did. We'll go back. Polaroid cameras. I can tell you, somebody who bought a Polaroid camera in the last decade, it's nice to be able to have a physical image. I've actually, for the last few years, built an annual yearly photo album. I think that's pretty cool. But you have to take your iPhone photos, upload them to Amazon or some other photo service, and then get them printed out. You got to wait. You got to upload them. You got to wait for them to be printed, wait for them to be delivered.
I think there's a similarity between Polaroid cameras and vinyl records, which is like you can own music digitally and you can own your photos digitally, but having that physical piece to represent it like has a lot of value to people.
And I'm in that camp. I like having the physical photo albums, and I like having the physical music. Also, I mean, you can look behind me. We get a whole bunch of books on here. When I read a book, actually,
you can do that.
when I read a book, I throw it here. We got a basement library as well. This one is just kind of for aesthetics, actually. But even if I do an audiobook, I still buy the book and throw it on the shelves because I want to have which is weird because I didn't even touch the book. I didn't crack the spine, but I like having this physical kind of ownership over that content material. You want to go back to 3 here?
Vintage fashion. You're going to have to talk about this one because, like, I don't get out very much.
So vintage fashion is kind of like, we all have seen the resurgence of bell bottoms, right? But vintage fashion, like even for men's clothes, you can look at men's suits. You can watch the width of the lapels kind of grow through the 70s and the 80s, and the shoulders grew in suits through the 80s. The shoulder pads grew, and then at a certain point, like kind of mid 90s, that zoot suit, right? The super wide, the
Like
yellow,
the 30s gangster suits.
yeah, and which, by the way, that itself was a resurgence, right? And then it started to narrow back again to that 50s, 60s style again. And now you see people that go, men that go out and they're wearing hats, they're wearing suits. By the way, the suit, if you look back at like vintage photography, if you watch like vintage videos of New York City, every man is wearing a suit and a hat.
Yeah, in like the 20s.
Yeah, well, I mean, all the way through the 60s, maybe through the early 70s. It wasn't until you had that kind of hippie surgeons that was like, yo, we don't have to do this like thing that everybody else is doing, and that kind of broke it. But there's still like, I mean, I love wearing a suit. What's the utility of wearing a suit?
None.
You get a couple extra pockets. It's hot as fuck. Like there's no.
Yeah, they're not flexible. They're not comfortable.
I mean, some good suits. Good suit. But I really like kind of wearing that traditional suit. And there's a lot of men that are just like me. I've noticed kind of some more pop-up suit shops. And I would say, let's see, it's 2024 right now. I would say prior to a decade ago, there was a big faltering in the men wearing suits. Like everybody wanted to dress like what's the Facebook guy? Mark Ruffalo, what's his name?
Zuckerberg.
Mark Zuckerberg. Everybody just wanted to wear like a t-shirt or a hoodie. Who like as soon as their career took off, they're like, oh, I'm going to start wearing t-shirts and hoodies like Mark Zuckerberg. And that was 2010 to 2017 or so. And then some people are like, no, like that's cool, but like I don't want to show up to fucking work in my pajamas. Like I want to look good.
Yeah, I think that like in a lot of these things, it's cyclical. It's like you go to one thing, people do it, they get tired of it, they go to another thing, and eventually patterns repeat. I want to hit some comments real quick. Rohana says she used to like trove the record stores looking for gems and like really misses that experience. And then MKBLV3 agrees with you that having vinyls is worth it, and that men's suits and fashion change constantly. I will say that men's fashion changes a lot less than women's fashion, but I also know dick about women's fashion.
That's very true. I actually was listening to WEQX, and I was listening to the radio this morning, and Jeff, the morning DJ, got on, and he said, yeah, I started collecting records. I kind of look at it as my retirement. And he said, but the only issue is that my wife told me that if you're looking at your record collection as retirement, that either means that you are going to have to sell all of those to retire, or you're basically not going to have much of a retirement. You'll just have good music.
Yeah. All right, let's hit the next.
All right. I'll let you hit it.
Board games. So traditional board games have gotten really popular, I'd say really in the last like 10 years or so.
What do you think has been, why are board games coming back?
I think because people like the in-person social interaction that board games require. Like it's really hard to have, like, unless you're playing like chess where you're not supposed to talk.
Yes,
like,
so, yeah.
But most board games involve some kind of social element, and they're a way to get people together around something that's common and low pressure. And depending on what kind of board game you're playing, it can be role playing. They can be funny games like Cards Against Humanity.
All right, let me
you can kind of pick the mood of the night based on the game. But it's a way, like, because people like playing games and playing online games. You're in a room by yourself. You might be mic'd up and talking with your people, but you're alone. Whereas with board games, you're with other people. And there's also that physical aspect of you're playing with the actual pieces and you're actually rolling dice and you're actually putting chips around the board.
All right, so you're 25 years old, you're 30 years old, you're 40 years old, you're 50 years old. You want to get together with 6 of your friends, 3 of your friends, 2 of your friends. What are you going to do?
Well, you can go out drinking.
And yeah, sure. But what if you're not an alcoholic like we are?
You can watch movies,
That's
which is not very social.
yeah, that's not very social. So the cool thing about board games is you guys get to be in the same room. You get to play together. There's some strategy. There's some conversation. You're forced into conversation, and you just really get to be in the moment. So that's
Yeah,
kind
a
of
little
the
bit of
reason.
friendly competition.
So I have a board game company, right? I have these new board games, Crokinole and Cornhole, that are right now. They're on a cargo ship. They'll arrive kind of mid-August, and the name of the company is Misafy. And Misa Misa is a Swedish word, effectively for the Danish word hygge. You know hygge?
Yeah,
Hygge is kind of the concept. It's kind of the feeling you have when you were by the fireplace with some candles lit, drinking hot chocolate, covered it with, with like a chunky blanket. It's kind of like where you relax, you're in the moment, or like say you're like with your family and friends, but you're not worried about the other shit in life. You're just kind of present. So the idea of Misafy.
I was going to think drunk.
No, the idea of Misafy is that you're present. It could be you're like making breakfast for your family, sitting at the table, but you're not, like, your mind isn't somewhere else. And that's why we're building board games, is because board games are the perfect thing to like be present with your family and friend and be able to enjoy that time together. So yeah, I totally see why board games are coming back, especially post coronavirus, where people were like not spending any. They would play online games. They do Zoom.
Well, yeah, because you couldn't.
Do
You
Zooms
couldn't.
together. But it's not the same. You and I had a half-hour conversation with a friend that lives in Colorado a couple months ago, and that was nice. But it's not the same as being in real life.
No, not at all.
And if we were to be in real life and just sit down, like probably like 23 minutes of the conversation, be like, all right, should we go to the bar or something? But if we had board games, we had some board games or something, we'd be able to keep ourselves content. All right, next up, this is one of my favorites. No, it's not. Barbershops. The idea of, as a man, so salons, most women that I know at least don't do their own hair on a regular. They go to a salon. For men, most men just go to the regular haircut place, whether it's Supercuts or whatever. I mean, for the last decade or so of my life with hair, I cut my own hair. So I spent very little time at barbershops. But I will tell you, from especially actually my black and brown friends that go to barbershops on a weekly basis, there's a whole like culture of barbershops. Like, you go into these places, some of these guys have like drinks, they smoke hookah, there's some good music. But what we're seeing also in terms of barbershops is the atmosphere that barbershops create. They want a place that you want to come back to. Not like Supercuts where you're like, oh, my hair's still long, I got to get a haircut. But like, yo, I need a haircut. It's like trimming your nails. I need to go back. I want to go hang out with these people. And the vintage barbershop is getting resurgence among also white men, right? Because white men generally, don't need a shape up, right? And a shape up is something you might do weekly if your hair's pretty thick and grows pretty fast. White dudes don't generally need a shape up. They just get a haircut when like their hair gets a little too scruffy. But the idea of the traditional barbershop where they kind of give you the process, they put the hot towel on your face. They might give you a little shot of espresso. They might give you a little shot of Sambuca, something like that. That is having a resurgence because it's an experience. I'm assuming, James, that you don't have a barber you go to often.
I mean, I've been seeing the same lady for like at least 10 years at this point, but I go every 2 months or so.
All right, move on to the next. I know we're trying to get some traction here. This is one you're into.
All right, yeah. So cocktail culture, like craft cocktails and like bars that really focus on making high quality drinks. Where like at a certain level, being a bartender is very much like being a chef, where you're creating your own ingredients and you're in the kitchen cooking stuff up, whether it's reductions or syrups or. It's not just buying stuff off the shelf in a grocery store and hoping that what you mix together tastes good.
Right, so
there's a real element to it.
Why is not getting a cocktail at Chili's or Applebee's not considered cocktail culture?
Because it's low quality ingredients by people that are just following a recipe from a book.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's kind of like pre-made, syrupy, sugary things that are basically covering the taste of alcohol with a syrupy sugar. Whereas actual mixology in cocktail culture is like being creative. It's like being that you're right, like being the chef and reinventing and
Well,
inventing.
I mean, even something as simple as sour mix. So I was at a bar a month ago with a friend, and she ordered a margarita there, and I took one sip of it, and I could tell that they used this super cheap powdered sour mix that tasted like
Powder.
chemicals.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's a difference between that versus actually squeezing the lemons and mixing it with water and sugar to make a proper sour mix. And the difference in taste that you get out of the cocktail is incomparable.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not that difficult to chop and squeeze some lemons.
No, but if you can buy a pound of sour mix powder that'll make 4 gallons of sour mix for $3 or $4, like, to make that same 4 gallons of sour mix with lemons would probably cost you $50.
Listen, you can win in the short run by saving money and having an inferior product, or you can win the long run by creating lifelong
Well,
customers.
this was a bar on Folly Beach that probably doesn't care too much about getting repeat business.
Fair enough. Probably because they're one of the only ones. And then also the thing about cocktail culture is not just all about cocktails. It's also about the environment, the experience, the speakeasy-esque vibe, or the bar vibe, the tiki vibe, or whatever the vibe is of the bar that they create.
Hey, real quick, let's answer Lucas's question of where we've been the past few weeks.
Oh, that's not real quick, dude. I don't even see the.
Well,
so what?
You can tease. You can tease some content.
So
give the 30-second overview.
Okay, first off, James' birthday was 2 days ago, so we'll wish James a happy belated birthday. If you didn't call him, which you didn't, shame on you. All right, shame on you. You should have called James. You should have said happy birthday. Actually, I didn't call you. I sent you
2.5 people called me.
Okay. Anybody from the podcast?
You're getting a half point because you called the day before.
Well, I called the day before, but I sent you a message the day of. I just assumed you were busy with life the day of, and I talked to you the day before. Also, I was telling somebody how old I was the other day. I was telling somebody how old you were the other day, actually, and I overestimated your age by a year, and then the person asked me my age, and I gave them my age. But that was, oh, you were born in this year? I was like, no, I wasn't. Either way, I have no idea how the fuck old we are.
Apparently, I was telling people that I was 38 for like the last 6 months.
And now you are.
Now I am, but thanks, Lucas.
That was James had a birthdays, and then 4th of July was last Thursday.
Yeah, so I was out of town last week,
and then I actually went to a small business and startup workshop that was also a contest and a challenge and a reality show. So this is reality television. It's called The Blocks. And it was probably one of the best experiences in recent years that I've had. I've met some incredible people who I know I will be friends with for a long, long time, made some great connections, strong connections. And I learned a lot about business. And I've been I haven't had a job in a decade and a half. So, I thought I was a business person. I thought I was an entrepreneur, not by choice, but by being forced into entrepreneurship. I didn't think of it as a cool thing. A lot of people think it's cool to be an entrepreneur. I was just always an entrepreneur because it was kind of the only option. But I learned a lot that I wish I had known a decade ago. And I'm now racing to implement this into my business. I've got a couple of businesses I'm working on. I mentioned Misify, the board game company, a little while ago. So either way, you're going to see some kind of cool shit, some big changes in the real estate business, and some big changes with the board game, which we actually don't even promote. We don't even promote fucking SipTalk. So we got a lot of. By the way, James, have you checked out the SipTalk merch shop?
Not recently.
Oh, so the SipTalk merch shop. We got pint glass, we got coffee cups, we got hoodies, we got t-shirts, we got dog shirts, we got a towel. There's a lot of SipTalk merch. So visit SipTalkPodcast.com. Well, I mean, if you're I'm not a dog person, but you're a dog person, you want to check out some dog shirts, some people shirts. MKBLV3 says Justin is 35. MKBLV3 did not see the gray hair in my beard in person today, so that makes me feel good. All right, let's move.
All right, let's keep on going. All right, so I'm going to skip one because this is more interesting to me. Dungeons and Dragons, and you can thank Stranger Things for this one.
Stranger Things, a television show. Dungeons and Dragons is basically a game for dorks. Kind of like Magic the Gathering, kind of like playing Pokemon cards. All that card shop, the collectible shop, the people that you don't see, the people that wear sweatpants kind of on a full-time basis that go to these shops in their
I'm one of those people that
in their mom's car. They didn't have a voice. And then came Stranger Things. and Dungeons and Dragons got brought to the forefront of pop culture, and attention was drawn to it. So these fellows that live in their mom's basement, that wear sweatpants pretty much 24/7, that shower every few days, they mostly eat. What are the little
Hot Pockets.
No, I was going to say orange stick Doritos. What are they called?
Cheetos?
Cheetos. They mostly eat Cheetos
and Mountain Dew.
Those guys all of a sudden got the spotlight shined on them. And actually, it's not that bad of a game.
I played it when I was in high school.
It is a board game. Well, listen, I used to love Magic the Gathering. I just never kind of got into Dungeons and Dragons. Like I admitted earlier, I was big on video games. My issue is I still think video games are cool, by the way. I still think Magic the Gathering is cool as shit. I mean, I acknowledge that it is occupied by the dorks, okay? But I still think it's cool. It's a cool game. I just don't have the fucking time in my life. So Dungeons and Dragons, it's Dungeons and Dragons is to card games what watching what was that HBO series with the dragons, Game of Thrones. So Dungeons and Dragons is to the board game community what watching Game of Thrones is to the movie community. Like if you're watching Game of Thrones and loving it, like you're not any like cooler than somebody who plays Dungeons and Dragons. You just exist on different planes. Fair enough.
All right, I never watched Game of Thrones.
I didn't just play the.
I watched like one episode and I was just like, this doesn't really do anything for me. You guys have it.
Yeah, I didn't really watch it, but I'm collecting the scotch. They have different scotch. There's 9 different bottles of scotch, and I'm collecting. I think I've got 7 or 8. So unopened. I don't plan to open them until I have a really bad day or a really good day. Next up, home gardening. Do you my brother-in-law and sister-in-law in their house, they have a backyard, and they're in Brooklyn, but they have a nice backyard, and they have so many tomatoes, zucchini, cucumber, lettuce, cilantro, jalapenos on their backyard, and they are at less danger than I am out here in the suburbs of rabbits and deer. Yeah, dude, I hit all this. I was so excited. I was about to make a basil salad last weekend. There's other basil was like fucking off the chain. So much fucking basil. I went out there on Sunday. The fucking deer ate that shit all. And deer generally, by the way, don't like fucking basil. Basil does not like basil's kind of like peppery. It's not a deer food. They just ate it because they're fucking hungry motherfuckers.
Anytime that I've tried to grow stuff here, like I've either lost interest or like lost patience. Like, and by that I mean like the doctor's patience. Like,
remind me, by the way, after the podcast, I'll tell you about almost getting eaten by a bear last night.
But yeah, gardening's cool and all. For me, it was too much work when I can just drive to the store and buy something that's almost as good.
Listen, I've noticed since coronavirus, the idea of like people spending more time at home doing gardening. I really want like a goat or a couple of goats and chickens, and I want to actually have like an actual vegetable garden.
So you want to have like a farm?
Dude, I have been chopping down for the last few years these kind of prickle bushes. I just found out last weekend they're fucking raspberries. I have a zillion raspberries on my property. I'm going to go out next weekend and just pick a bunch of raspberries.
Yeah, make a redux sauce.
That could be cool. Yeah, that would be
lemon juice, sugar, cook it for 45 minutes at low temp.
Easy. Yeah. There's so many fucking raspberries in my backyard, and I was just they're like prickle bushes. I was just chopping them all down. All right, home gardening. By the way, badass.
Like,
you home garden, you're way cooler than somebody who plays Dungeons and Dragons.
I want to skip ahead.
Probably a dork.
So, like home gardening and sourdough baking, I feel like go together, which is like they both saw their resurgence during COVID when people had jack shit to do and they were stuck at home.
It's just these things that take time. Like, it's cool. Like, by the way, for the record, bread. What is bread? You know the ingredients that are involved in bread?
Like water, flour, yeast.
Yeah, that's it. Salt. Water, flour, yeast, salt. No, like not much salt. That's bread. The problem is any bread that you go to in the grocery store and you get white bread or even wheat bread, it's like flour, but it's not good flour. It's like, so you know what enriched flour is? We had this conversation. Do you know what enriched flour is?
Flour that's profited off the labor of the proletariat.
So what happens with flour, what happens with wheat, is they refine it so much to build flour that the actual flour itself is basically a pure carbohydrate. It's a pure sugar. It's actually not marketable as a food. So in order to market the flour that's been reduced as a food, they have to add nutrients to it. And that's called enriched flour. So they actually have to re-add nutrients. So if you're buying enriched flour, you're buying super refined, basically jet fuel sugar that has a few vitamins added to it. So there's some flour. If you go to the grocery store, you look at the flour options, kind of the big bags, the 5-pound bags are going to be kind of bullshit. If you look kind of down the aisle, like the slightly smaller bags, that's better, usually higher quality wheat. But when it comes to bread, if you're buying bread, it's like flour, sugar, corn syrup, maltodextrin, and then like the next ingredient. So I'm all for making your own bread. That's my long point short. Make your own fucking bread if you have the time for it.
Yeah, like so many of these things are just like time consuming and annoying to do if you like.
You have to have the things. You have to have the time, and those of us that work fucking
Well, there's
zillion hours a
opportunity
day,
cost too.
yeah, I mean that's why I don't have chickens because I don't fucking have the time for it. I'd rather pay somebody to give me eggs. You want to hit number 13 because this is kind of an interesting one.
Vinyl flooring. So all those records that you don't like.
So now everybody is always for hardwood flooring, right? The issue with hardwood flooring is as soon as it gets wet, the wood swells and the wood gets ruined.
It's expensive as shit.
And I mean, the thing about hardwood floors is it's thick, so you can sand it and then you go down a layer and then kind of reglaze it with a stain or something like that. Except that kind of the newest hardwood floor they made for the last like 12 years or so is actually, it's hardwood, but it's like very thin. So you get like one very light sand and then you kind of reach the life of that hardwood. But vinyl flooring for many, many years, like in the 60s and the 70s, was kind of you just kind of roll out a piece of vinyl and you just glue it to the floor and that's your new floor.
Well, you still do that.
And you can make it look like tiles, but at the end of the day, it's kind of still a roll-out floor. Now, what they've done is they've made vinyl into the shape of kind of lumber and wood. It's still pretty thin, and it's got kind of this veneer paint on the top, and it looks like wood, and it almost feels like wood to the feet. But like if you actually like feel like you dig your fingernails into it, it's fucking plastic. The issue is it's pretty durable. Live restriction. We said some dumb shit. We're fucked on TikTok. It's pretty durable, but if you scratch it or you sand it or you do anything abrasive to it, you run right through that kind of paint layer. You're just onto the vinyl. That's all. You want to hit next one here?
Which one? Classic cars?
Yeah, sure. Classic cars.
I don't feel like they've had a resurgence. I feel like there's always just kind of been like a small group of people that are passionate about it, and like classic cars have always been cool. But again, this is another one that like if you want to get into it and like restoring cars and stuff, requires a lot of time and a lot of space and a fair bit of money.
Yeah, I have not seen. I agree with you. I have not seen a resurgence of classic cars. The most recent Porsche that I bought, the 911. Did you drive it? The 911 in the driveway?
I didn't drive it. I think you drove me to the airport in it.
That's 25 years old. That's technically a classic car. My insurance this year just went down to like fucking nothing, which is cool as shit. I don't consider that a classic car, but I would like to get into buying some 1950s and 60s sports cars, like some MGs or some Alfa Romeos or something like that. And
dude, they're so unreliable.
Well, that's the issue with the restoration. It's got to be, you got to have good mechanics. Not a mechanic. You have to have kind of good mechanic skills to go in and actually do it. All right, next up, traditional wet shaving. Using long razors, safety razors, straight razors. How do you shave?
With just a cartridge razor.
All right. Do you have like a subscription for new cartridges?
No, I go through them so slowly.
So I obviously shave probably a hell of a lot more than you do. I shave my head every fucking day. I have a metal razor with the cartridges that are inserts. I do probably like one a week or so, maybe a little bit longer than that. But when I shave my face, I love using the long straight razors, the wet shave. I really think that's pretty cool. And I also have at times done the safety razor where you're kind of getting that blade, like the single double-sided blade. You strap it onto the razor, it's a safety razor. It's one blade, and then you shave with that. It's not quite as efficient as when you're using a cartridge razor that has like 4 or 5 razors in a row. But there's something like cathartic about using a traditional razor. I just think it's cool. I think it's nice. I'm always rushing around, racing around. I don't like. I realize like many days, like I leave the house, I'm in the car. Like, oh, I didn't actually even look at myself in the fucking mirror. Like I shave my head, I like touch up my ears. I didn't actually look in the mirror. I didn't like check my teeth. I didn't look in the mirror at all. I remember one day when I was leaving my apartment in Manhattan, and somebody in my hallway was like, "Yo, what's that in your ear?" And I was like, "What do you mean, what's that in my ear?" And I had all this soap on the side of my head. I just never fucking dried off the side of my head from after shaving my head.
All right, I want to skip around here since we only got 5 minutes.
All right, let's
next one, camping and van life. Like the whole van life movement, to me, that's just like being homeless with extra steps.
It's being homeless with more money, also. Just for the right, not that much more money, but like a little more money. Like you get 20 grand and like you're cool being homeless. Like there you go. I don't know what number that was. So
the 20. I'm jumping around now.
Right, so what else you want to hit then? Because we got some cool ones on here.
Let's see.
I haven't seen drive-in movie theaters any resurgence, by the way.
I drove by one in upstate New York.
On what? On Route 9 or 9P or whatever it is?
No, the one that's out in Wynantskill, Hollywood Drive-In.
Yeah.
Because I was up in Albany last weekend and went to Jack's Drive-In. Do you ever have burgers at Jack's?
I like once.
Dude, they're so good.
Yeah. I wish I knew. I should have just gone up there that weekend. What else are we missing here? Vinyl collection, letter writing, acoustic music, handmade pottery.
Kombucha brewing, like that's
kombucha is that a resurgence? I always said
I don't know.
I
feel like that this is kind of like a new thing where like in the last 10 or 15 years, like kombucha all of a sudden got popular. Like it's always existed, or it's existed for a very long time, but it wasn't until recently that people like actually bought it.
But I don't think kombucha is a resurgence. I don't ever think it had its heyday. So listen, it's the end of the podcast. What I want to do, I want to introduce the bar trivia question for episode 200.
Oh, real quick, because I mentioned this in the text messages, and Sasha asked this question unprompted. Have you been using the Apple Vision Pro, or is it collecting dust?
Is it in the background of the picture here? I think it's like, yeah, collecting dust. I did use it a little bit on my flight out to Oklahoma last week. So that was cool, but no, it mostly collects dust. All right, episode 251, Bart Trivia. Something extraordinarily unusual happened on the 6th of May, 1978, at 12:34 p.m. What was it? Something extraordinarily unusual happened on the 6th of May, 1978, 12:34 p.m. What was it?
Oh, I know.
Yeah, I knew too. Don't answer it. I'll let you answer it off air. But I think we might be able to hit one more thing from our list here. One more thing from our list. You think of anything else on our list? Oh, soap making, candle making?
No.
Soap and candle making during the coronavirus came back pretty heavy.
No, I'm seeing beekeeping, and you're like urban and suburban beekeeping has gained interest. I'm just thinking like, what better troll hobby to have than to do urban beekeeping?
I would like. So we actually had a major bee infestation in the house in the attic last November or October or something when it was still kind of warm. I bought a beekeeper suit, and I went up there and fucking exterminated the shit out of those motherfuckers. Also, last weekend I stepped on a bee when I was weed whacking. Dude, that I don't know what it was. I read stepping on a bee, you get that much more. When they sting you, you get that much more of their like serum or something into your foot when you step on them.
Yeah.
My foot like blew up, and I actually thought like I wasn't gonna be able to walk the next day. It was in pain for like 12, 18 hours. That was pretty fucking wild. Either way, though, I'm more for honeybees. I'd like some honeybees in my backyard. Vinyl siding, beekeeping, retro bikes, kombucha, herbal remedies, quacks, calligraphy, soap making, classic movies. I have not seen a resurgence in classic movies. Have you?
Nope.
I wish I did. I wish that we saw more of a resurgence in classic movies. Analog watches. Have you seen?
I don't know. Like I wear a watch, but it's also a digital watch. So
macrame.
I don't even know what that is.
It's like a stitching, crafting thing. Roller skating.
Maybe in like Venice Beach in LA.
Oh, actually, one big one we missed was retro sneakers.
Oh yeah, that one's legit.
People go fucking crazy about old school sneakers, which I don't understand. But I think we're out of time actually. So
Yeah, stick around for a little bit afterwards.
hell yes, I will. And if you guys are watching us live, don't forget to visit SipTalkPodcast.com. You'll be able to visit our website, buy us a drink. You'll be able to see all the Bart trivia, questions, answers, and you'll be able to visit our audio podcast and our video podcast. See you next time. Adios. All right, you made it through the episode. Don't forget to subscribe. Visit SipTalkPodcast.com. Buy us a drink. See you next time.
I like PBR. I just got priced out of it.